Hello, my name is Michael Houtzager, and I am the producer of the content on this CD and on the website. For the past 3 months, I've been working very closely with Al Bielek and Swerdlow, Preston, Nichols, and Larry James to put together in an aggregated form the complete story as best it could be told about the Philadelphia experiment and the Montauk projects, all in one place. It has been quite an interesting experience for me personally. We have gone down roads which I have never imagined in conversation, and ideas have popped up and been presented to me, some ideas which I myself have never contemplated. I will say that the information presented here will be easy for you to discount as fantasy. We're talking about Montauk time tunnels, extraterrestrials, mind control projects, massive government cover-ups, the ability to store in a computer, say, the entirety of oneself in a digital representation and then be able to manipulate that digital information and reformulate that back into a being known as yourself. We're talking about time travel to re-engineer the past. All of this is stuff that you just don't find in your everyday experience. And many people would say the government doesn't know how to cover up any information. However, what we're going to present to you is how they do this, and perhaps after you get an understanding of the process of doing these experiments, you'll gain a better insight into how the cover-up does exist. Now, I've been, I guess, over these last 3 months on a search for hard evidence, hard proof that something like this ever did happen. And while I could take you to Montauk, which is on the tip of Long Island, and show you pictures of buildings that were there, certainly that doesn't prove that there was an underground facility, which we discuss in depth. And while I can aggregate for you several people who all share the same and very similar experiences together, that in and of itself doesn't prove that any of this happened. But one of the best sources of proof, I think, is along the way, Al Bielek remembered an encounter he had at a seminar with a Dr. James F. Coram, who has quite respectable credentials. And Dr. Coram came up to him and said he has replicated on a very small basis the Philadelphia experiment using Tesla technology. When Al told me of this, we went to the internet and quickly were able to find many mentions of him. We got a telephone number and called him up and asked him if he would share his research paper with us to publish on our website and CD. He agreed to do that, and that is an experiment where he took just a miniature ship and was able to make it invisible for a short period of time. I think that's one positive step in the right direction. Now, my role as the producer of this CD is not to impart to you that I know the truth. This is a searching experience for me, as well as it will be for you. I don't know the truth, and certainly the deeper I get into this material, the more I learn how little I know about anything at all, it seems like. But my job is to put the information out to each one of you in a way that is hopefully devoid of my own opinions, my own perceptions, and to let these people tell their story. Now, presented here is perhaps the most comprehensive arrangement of content ever made about the life of Al Bielek. And this life is indeed a very, very complicated and confusing life. On the CD and on the website, I put together a timeline showing the dual lives of Al Bielek. On one side, there's the life of Ed Cameron, and on the other, there's the life of Al Bielek. Al Bielek claims that he was originally Ed Cameron, who was born in 1916. His father was Alexander Duncan Cameron. He had a brother. Actually, he had several brothers. Ed Cameron's life was interesting in that he was born into a wealthy family. He went through college and graduated with a PhD in physics from Harvard University. Shortly after that, he was then recruited by Dr. John von Neumann to work in the Navy. And very quickly, both he and his brother went to the Philadelphia experiment. Now that was the experiment which the USS Eldridge was made invisible for a short period of time. The first test was 20 minutes, no one was on board. And the second test, actually, it was invisible for 4 hours. In 1943, the reason why they were so interested in invisibility was because half of our ships being sent to England were being sunk. And we needed something to sort of fend off a U-boat threat. Now, from that point, the story gets very, very interesting. In 43, when the ship went invisible, both Duncan and Ed tried to shut down the equipment, and they couldn't do it, so they jumped off the USS Eldridge, hoping to swim to shore. They were both good swimmers. Well, they landed in what they call limbo, and the next thing they recall was waking up in a hospital bed in the year 2137, where they both spent 6 weeks. Now, toward the end of those 6 weeks, Ed Cameron found himself in the year 2749, and he doesn't know how he got there, but he just knows that he spent 2 years in the year 2749. And in this program, he describes cities thousands of stories high that were built using anti-gravitation devices, and when they got tired of one place, they could just simply move the city to another location. And it was really quite an enjoyable socialistic society run by computers and an elusive group of people who apparently are doing things in this timeline called the Wingmakers. Well, toward the end of that 2-year stay, the computer told Ed Cameron there's a mess in the past which he needs to go back and correct. He was sent back to 2137, where he picked up his brother, and then they landed in the year 1983 at Montauk. The people there convinced both of them that they needed to go to the USS Eldridge in hyperspace in 1943 to destroy the equipment, shut down everything that's going on so that the Eldridge would reappear, which they both did. But prior to the ship reappearing again, Duncan Cameron apparently jumped back off. He, I guess, panicked or something like that. He landed back in the 80s, and Ed Cameron sort of became visible again with the ship. And the story of the ship is interesting, where several sailors were embedded in the hull of the vessel itself. Well, after that experience, Ed Cameron's life was not quite normal. We detail his involvement with the atomic energy or atomic bomb program at Los Alamos, how he sort of irritated Dr. Teller. He was sort of taken out of the program, and when he got a ticket to Alpha Centaurian 1, and we describe the encounter that he had with those beings there. Now, apparently people who get sent there usually don't get sent back, but he did. And after he got sent back, he worked on the Mach 1 project. Then he and Jack Wrigley decided to start their own company to work on ion propulsion engines. They were successful, according to Al, but prior to getting the engine off the ground into a commercial format, he was removed from the project. He was removed from his family, and he was again sent back to Montauk, where a decision was made to have him converted to a new person, that being Al Bielek, and this was in the 50s. The way they did that is they took them from the 50s back up to 1983, and then they moved him back down to 1927, where he was Al Bielek. From 27 all the way to present, he's maintained this timeline. However, in the 70s, Al Bielek, apparently, he believes, was recruited to work at the Montauk-Project. He was a psychic director there, worked with the mind control and the Montauk Boys program, and later on he was involved in many of the time travel and space travel trips that they made to Mars and other locations throughout the universe and time. Al does a very in-depth discussion of all those experiences that he can recall at this point in time. So here we are, the year 2000, and Al is telling a story. So this is a fantastic story, and if you hear it all by itself of just Al Bielek, you'll find it hard to believe. And that is why I asked Al, are there others who are in a position to support your story? We found 3 others. Preston Nichols, who perhaps is a good friend of Al, and Duncan Cameron, agreed to do 2 program segments with us. And you'll find his interview interesting as well. Swerdlow also agreed to do a segment. I found him not through Al, but through another person, and Stu claims to have known of Al at Montauk because Stu was involved with the Montauk Boys program, and he talks quite a bit about that regretful period in his life where they used boys sort of as guinea pigs, as test subjects, which they would pull off the streets in large cities, and well, they did some what I consider to be awful things. Getting back to Preston, he seems to have been involved in this program from day one. He has an interesting capability of being musically gifted. He understands music as well as science and technology as well as the mind. Combining all of that together was the sort of the engine to bring about these programs in a mechanized format. Now the last one we interviewed was Larry James, and Larry James, that's not his real name. He met Al at a conference, and immediately they both knew each other. Larry does not want to get involved in this whole program, in a sense, that he doesn't want to be known. He has a normal life and doesn't want really those associated with him knowing this story or knowing that he is telling this story. There's a bit of fear that I detect, certainly when I talk to him. But he just made the decision that we can't use his real name, I can't have any pictures of him, and so therefore I have to honor that. Now I would like to mention the nature of these memories that people are talking or telling their story from. I think as Larry described it best, it's a Swiss cheese memory. And that is, there's lots of holes in it. What they say happens is that they're teleported, say at 12 o'clock midnight. That using this Montauk time tunnel technology, they are actually grabbed, teleported to another location, and they work for 8 hours. Upon the conclusion of their 8 hours, they're teleported back to, say, 12:01. And just that very process makes many of their memories go away. They forget it, that they were involved. But what happens is eventually, over time, the memories do come back. Now, it seems like most of these people, or all of these, are not consciously participating in these programs. And when they get there, they just seem to be in an altered state, almost as if they're picking up from where they left behind and not forgetting that. When the memories did come back, and for all of them it was at an early age, each one of them thought they were crazy, that they were going crazy, that they were remembering things events which they thought never happened to them. And it was until others came up and confirmed these memories for them, and they were able to discuss it with others, did they begin to know that they weren't crazy, that they had actually experienced these events for themselves. There is a common theme among all these people who are presented here in this program, and that is, really truly, financially, none of them are very well off. They all seem to struggle to get by day, and I know that if I was trying to make money, then going about it, telling these fantastic stories to others, certainly that is not the best way to go about making money. But they are very serious in nature, and I believe that they believe fully in what they are telling you on this program here. They truly believe it. Whether it's indeed a made-up memory or not, I can't tell you that. That is for you to judge. Now, as I spent these 3 months with everybody, there were some inconsistencies, and as you listen to the program, you will hear some inconsistencies. The first one that struck me was our discussion of the Draco, and a Draco is a reptilian from another star system who was in charge of the alien interests at Montauk. I asked them if the Draco had a tail. It would seem natural that a reptilian would have a tail. And in some discussions, Al said he did, and in others, both Al and Larry said that he did not have a tail. And I did that because I myself wonder about the validity, and so I tried to ask a lot of trick questions, or questions that would cause them to think, or cause them to stray from perhaps a normal path of telling a story when they're standing up in front of an audience who doesn't have the opportunity to ask those questions. And so, yes, that was an inconsistency, but again, don't discount the entire information because of these inconsistencies. Other question about the Draco, was he androgynous or not? Stu Swerdlow said that the Draco was, others said that he wasn't, but of course they wouldn't know whether he was or not. Again, a little inconsistency. Perhaps one of the biggest inconsistencies is the conversion of Ed Cameron to Al Bielek. Now, Al believes that they used Montauk technology to physically regress him into a new body. Larry, he claimed to be the man in charge of the time control program at the time, and that what they did is they took his body and they actually sort of extracted the soul essence of his body, and his soul was electronically placed in the body of Al Bielek. So they disagree a little bit, but then Al will say that there was a son born, that he was sick, and that was to the Bielek family, and then all of a sudden he did become well. At 9 months old is when his memory started functioning. So he'll admit he doesn't have all the answers. Now, as you go through this content, and if any of it's true, then if you're like me, you'll have to reevaluate your concept of yourself. I mean, are we in a universe really teeming with life, or are we alone? And if we're not alone and others are here, why do they remain so elusive? And if time travel is indeed possible, then that means everything is happening all at the same time. And all we are experiencing is our perception of where we think we are in an artificial time continuum. You'll find that more questions will pop up than answers, and it will be just a long process of asking questions and really pondering what the potential answers are. I have the questions, but not all the answers. but perhaps together we will come closer to getting some of those answers. The Al Bielek website will serve as your tool to discuss some of these issues and pose questions to Al Bielek. What I would like to do is on a monthly basis have all of you send your emails to the address given on the website, and I'll bring Al Bielek in here, and one by one for the questions which he picks out, I'll have him respond to those and then post those answers or the responses on our website. So enjoy your own discovery experience through the words of Al Bielek, Stu Swerdlow, Preston Nichols,